United States District Court in and for the District of Columbia, now holding these naturalization ceremonies, will draw nigh and give their attention. God save the United States of America and this honorable court. Please remain standing for the presentation of the colors, the playing of the national anthem, and the retirement of the colors. Come to order. This honorable court is now in session.
Please welcome the Honorable Richard W. Roberts, Chief Judge, U.S. District of Columbia.
Good morning. Good morning. All right. Mr. President, Archivist Ferrero, Deputy Secretary Mayorkas, Director Rodriguez, our brilliant students from the Stewart Hobson Middle School and Capitol Hill Center cluster, guests and candidates, I congratulate you as you are about to attain your new United States citizenship. It is always a joyful moment for me to welcome new members, citizens to our country. Today's ceremony occurs just a few weeks after our Thanksgiving celebration. Although in 1619, settlers purchased their first human cargo in Virginia to work plantations, Thanksgiving traditionally celebrates the time after the year 1620, when in Massachusetts, the people indigenous to this land welcomed with open arms and gifts the foreign pilgrims from across the ocean who practiced very different religions and customs. Having this welcoming naturalization ceremony now is perhaps a timely and poignant reminder in today's climate. Inscribed on the Statue of Liberty are the words from the Emma Lazarus sonnet that have beckoned immigrants here for decades. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Of course, over the years, this nation has also welcomed the energetic, the rich, and the aristocrats, but one quality of which we are quite proud as a society is that we measure our worth as a people not by what we own, but rather by how we treat the least among us. And that is because the compassion that motivates the words inscribed on the Statue of Liberty is a mark of our highest aspiration. And it makes sense, because in other lands where a man's class or caste or complexion might mark him as despised, here it may be a mark of someone's rich and proud ancestry, like those original Americans who civilized this land long before Europe ever discovered that it was here, or the people through whose enslaved labor the mighty engines of American manufacturing and agriculture and enterprise were built, or the descendants of gallant patriots who gave their lives to break colonial bonds so that freedom could flourish and harbor others seeking it. You candidates will only now have a beginning to have a chance to build legacies such as these for yourselves as United States citizens. Remember those legacies as you see the glorious mosaic of faces that you encounter here. We welcome your contributions to continuing our evolution as a people, and we wish you the best of luck as you bestow upon the least among us the same compassion that this country has bestowed upon millions before you. Thank you very much. It is now my pleasure to recognize Ms. Cheryl Horn, Deputy Clerk, United States District Court for the District of Columbia, to call the roll. Ms. Horn.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, when your name is called, please stand and answer here or present and remain standing. Filbert Florent Aquila, Congo. Zachary Abraham O'Brien, Iraq. Luis Antonio Aguilar Carranza, Honduras. Asmar Tedesi Elmiro, Ethiopia. Bertukan Ferretti Gadea, Ethiopia. Felisa de Guzman Sanchez, Philippines. Margaret Helen Jenkins, Canada. Shippi Singh, Nepal. Andreas Ican, Germany. Aristide William Fambo, Cameroon. Alexander Antonio Sorel Gonzalez, Dominican Republic. Asen Alex Nikolov, Bulgaria. Iwi Elisha Knott, Jamaica. Ivan de Jesus, Brazil. Dirksko Joaquin Frederick Graf von Faul and Klein Igluth, Germany. Jorge Jose Rivas Gonzalez, Venezuela. Lorella Luciana Praley, Peru. Tin Young Ma, Hong Kong. Patricia Vieira da Silva, Brazil. Jason Cordoba Hurtado, Colombia. John Elder Allen Gifford, Canada. And Mugala Gessa, Uganda. Tabitha Caleb Francis, St. Lucia. Cesar Oban Mokatu, Gabon. Harrison Omar Bazada, El Salvador. Yulia Obreja, Romania. Michaela Ekterina Obreja, Romania. Michael Joseph Peter Hennessy, Ireland. Lenka Makalova Holbertson, Czech Republic. Maha Abdullah, France. And Charmaine Evatni Malcolm, Jamaica. Your Honor, there are 31 applicants for naturalization, and each of the applicants have been examined by the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service. and the government has completed its investigation in each case. It has been determined that each applicant is eligible for naturalization at this time. And I move that upon taking the oath of allegiance to the United States of America, each applicant present having answered to his or her name, to include those prayers for name change, be granted naturalization as citizens of the United States of America.
Ms. Horn, it will be my pleasure and delight to grant your motion. Your motion is granted. New members of the United States citizenry, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state or sovereignty, of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen, that I will support and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will bear arms on behalf of the United States when required by the law, that I will perform non-combatant service in the armed forces of the United States when required by the law, that I will perform work of national importance under civilian direction when required by the law, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Let me be the first to congratulate all of you as new United States citizens.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Director, USCIS, Leon Rodriguez.
Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance. All rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. The Civic Renewal Network is an alliance of 26 organizations dedicated to raising the visibility of civics education and providing free, high-quality resources for teachers and classes. Partner organizations include the National Archives and Records Administration, the Annenberg Public Policy Center, the Library of Congress, the National Constitution Center, National History Day, the NIH's Enticement Project, the Newseum, Rock the Vote, and the U.S. Courts. We welcome representatives of Hobson Middle School and Capitol Hill Cluster from the District of Columbia to read the preamble.
United States in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and ensure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Thank you to the Civic Renewal Network, and let's give another round of applause to these students. Please welcome to the stage the Archivist of the United States, David S. Ferriero.
I want to add my thanks to the Stuart Hobson Middle School for that wonderful rendition of the preamble. Thank you very much. Good morning and welcome to the Rotunda of the National Archives. First and foremost, congratulations to our 31 new citizens of the United States. It's a great honor to have the President of the United States here with us today to celebrate your American citizenship. Thank you to Deputy Secretary Mayorkas, Judge Roberts, and Director Rodriguez for joining us. The National Archives is proud to host the naturalization ceremony with the President, the Department of Homeland Security, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, and the United States District Courts for the District of Columbia. I can think of no better place to become an American citizen than in front of these documents. Behind me is the Constitution, which remains the basis on which our federal government is structured. The preamble, which the students just recited, contains three important words: we the people. That brief phrase captures the essence of our democracy. Over to my right is the Declaration of Independence, the parchment that the Founding Fathers signed in 1776 in Philadelphia. They risked their lives, their families' lives, and all they owned in signing it. We have them to thank for our freedoms today. And to my left is the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. These amendments were added to the Constitution exactly 224 years ago today. These amendments are the basic personal rights and freedoms guaranteed to every American citizen, which you will exercise every day. These documents, these charters of freedom, make up our foundation as U.S. citizens. I am the grandson of Italian immigrants and great-grandson of Irish immigrants. Using passenger lists here at the National Archives, I discovered that my grandfather, at age 15, arrived in Boston from Naples aboard the ship Commonwealth in March 1903. And my grandmother, Antonia Giorgio, also from Naples, arrived in March of 1909 on the Romantic. Many Americans have stories like mine, and now you, our newly naturalized citizens, will have your own journey to share. Here at the National Archives, we have over 12 billion pages of records. Becoming American citizens make you now part of the National Archives. Your naturalization records will be part of our holdings, and someday your descendants will search our records to discover your history. Here at the National Archives, history comes to life. We house the tangible reminders of where we have been, how far we have come, and what is possible for each and every American. Each record, large or small, is a representation of a greater story, many of which are still being told today in daily life. The National Archives tells everyone's story, and now your story. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Ferriero. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Deputy Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Alejandro N. Mayorkas.
Mr. President, my fellow Americans, congratulations. This is a special day in your lives, and it is an equally special day in the life of our nation. Your identity will from this day forward be shaped by the United States citizenship you have now earned. Our Our nation's future, in turn, shines with the promise of your contributions. In 1973, I became a naturalized citizen just as you have become one today. My parents, my sister, and I arrived in this country in 1960 as refugees from Cuba. While my parents always had faith in their children, I don't think they could have imagined that years later their son would be standing beside the President of the United States, addressing all of you in this most beautiful ceremony. But that is the promise of America. As President Obama said, now, as a nation, we don't promise equal outcomes, but we were founded on the idea everybody should have an equal opportunity to succeed. No matter who you are, what you look like, where you come from, you can make it. That's an essential promise of America. Where you start should not determine where you end up. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of our nation is yours, not to inherit, but to create. As a parent of beautiful daughters, yes, my daughters look like their mother. I try to bring life to the hope that our daughters will one day live in a world better than the one that preceded them. More than 6 years ago, we moved our children across the country here to Washington, D.C., because we believed in the President's vision for what that better world could be and how America could lead it. We feel that more strongly today than we did those years ago. I have been and remain privileged to contribute in some small way to the fulfillment of our President's vision for the promise of America. His vision champions our proud tradition and our everlasting identity as a nation of immigrants. I hope that you will embrace the citizenship you have earned, its rights and its responsibilities, and contribute to the future of our nation as well. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayorkas. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the United States, Barack Obama.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please have a seat. Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Deputy Secretary Mayorkas, Judge Roberts, Director Rodriguez. Thank you to our archivist, David Ferreo, and everyone at the National Archives for hosting us here today in this spectacular setting, and to my fellow Americans, our newest Americans. I'm so excited. You are men and women from more than 25 countries, from Brazil to Uganda, from Iraq to the Philippines. You may come from teeming cities or rural villages. You don't look alike. You don't worship the same way. But here, surrounded by the very documents whose values bind us together as one people, you've raised your hand and sworn a sacred oath. I'm proud to be among the first to greet you as my fellow Americans. What a remarkable journey all of you have made. And as of today, your story is forever woven into the largest story of this nation. In the brief time that we have together, I want to share that story with you. Because even as you've put in the work required to become a citizen, you still have a demanding and rewarding task ahead of you, and that is the hard work of active citizenship. You have rights and you have responsibilities. And now you have to help us write the next great chapter in America's story. Just about every nation in the world, to some extent, admits immigrants. But there's something unique about America. We don't simply welcome new immigrants. We don't simply welcome new arrivals. We are born of immigrants. That is who we are. Immigration is our origin story. And for more than 2 centuries, it's remained at the core of our national character. It's our oldest tradition. It's who we are. It's part of what makes us exceptional. After all, unless your family is Native American, one of the first Americans, our families, all of our families, come from someplace else. The first refugees were the Pilgrims themselves, fleeing religious persecution, crossing the stormy Atlantic to reach a new world where they might live and pray freely. 8 signers of the Declaration of Independence were immigrants. And in those first decades after independence, English, German, and Scottish immigrants came over, huddled on creaky ships, seeking what Thomas Paine called asylum for the persecuted lovers of civil and religious liberty. Down through the decades, Irish Catholics fleeing hunger, Italians fleeing poverty, filled up our cities, rolled up their sleeves, built America. Chinese laborers jammed in steerage under the decks of steamships, making their way to California to build the Central Pacific Railroad that would transform the West and our nation. Wave after wave of men, women, and children from the Middle East and the Mediterranean, from Asia and Africa, poured into Ellis Island or Angel Island, their trunks bursting with their most cherished possessions, maybe a photograph of the family they left behind, a family Bible or Torah or Quran, a bag in one hand, maybe a child in the other, standing for hours in long lines. New York and cities across America were transformed into a sort of global fashion show. You had Dutch lace caps and North African fezzes, stodgy tweed suits, colorful Caribbean dresses. And perhaps, like some of you, these new arrivals might have had some moments of doubt, wondering if they had made a mistake in leaving everything and everyone they ever knew behind. Life in America was not always easy. It wasn't always easy for new immigrants. Certainly it wasn't easy for those of African heritage who had not come here voluntarily, and yet in their own way were immigrants themselves. There was discrimination and hardship and poverty. But like you, they no doubt found inspiration in all those who had come before them. And they were able to muster faith that here in America, they might build a better life and give their children something more. Just as so many have come here in search of a dream, others sought shelter from nightmares. Survivors of the Holocaust, Soviet refuseniks, refugees from Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Iraqis and Afghans fleeing war, Mexicans, Cubans, Iranians leaving behind deadly revolutions, Central American teenagers running from gang violence, the lost boys of Sudan escaping civil war. There are people like Philbert Florent Akwala from the Republic of Congo, who was granted asylum when his family was threatened by political violence. And today, Philbert is here, a proud American. We can never say it often or loudly enough. Immigrants and refugees revitalize and renew America. Immigrants like you are more likely to start your own business. Many of the Fortune 500 companies in this country were founded by immigrants or their children. Many of the tech startups in Silicon Valley have at least one immigrant founder. Immigrants are the teachers who inspire our children, and they're the doctors who keep us healthy. They're the engineers who design our skylines, and the artists and the entertainers who touch our hearts. Immigrants are soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen who protect us, often risking their lives for an America that isn't even their own yet. As an Iraqi, Mohammed Ibrahim al-Naib was the target of death threats for working with American forces. He stood by his American comrades and came to the U.S. as a refugee. And today we stand by him, and we are proud to welcome Mohammed as a citizen of the country that he already helped to defend. We celebrate this history, this heritage, as an immigrant nation. And we should be strong enough to acknowledge, as painful as it may be, that we haven't always lived up to our own ideals. We haven't always lived up to these documents. From the start, Africans were brought here in chains against their will and then toiled under the whip. They also built America. A century ago, New York City shops displayed those signs: "No Irish need apply." Catholics were targeted, their loyalty questioned. So much so that as recently as the 1950s and 60s, when JFK had to run, he had to convince people that his allegiance wasn't primarily to the Pope. Chinese immigrants faced persecution and vicious stereotypes and were for a time even banned from entering America. During World War II, German and Italian residents were detained. And in one of the darkest chapters in our history, Japanese immigrants and even Japanese American citizens were forced from their homes and imprisoned in camps. We succumbed to fear. We betrayed not only our fellow Americans, but our deepest values. We betrayed these documents. It's happened before. And the biggest irony, of course, is that those who betrayed these values were themselves the children of immigrants. How quickly we forget. One generation passes, two generations passes, and suddenly we don't remember where we came from. And we suggest that somehow there is us and there is them, not remembering we used to be them. On days like today, we need to resolve never to repeat mistakes like that again. We must resolve to always speak out against hatred and bigotry in all of its forms, whether taunts against the child of an immigrant farm worker or threats against a Muslim shopkeeper. We are Americans. Standing up for each other is what the values enshrined in the documents in this room compels us to do, especially when it's hard, especially when it's not convenient. That's when it counts. That's when it matters. Not when things are easy, but when things are hard. The truth is, being an American is hard. Being part of a democratic government is hard. Being a citizen is hard. It is a challenge. It's supposed to be. There's no respite from our ideals. All of us are called to live up to our expectations for ourselves, not just when it's convenient, but when it's inconvenient, when it's tough, when we're afraid. The tension throughout our history between welcoming or rejecting the stranger, it's about more than just immigration. It's about the meaning of America. What kind of country do we want to be? It's about the capacity of each generation to honor the creed as old as our founding, e pluribus unum, that out of many we are one. Scripture tells us, "For we are strangers before you, and sojourners, as were all our fathers." We are strangers before you. In the Mexican immigrant today, we see the Catholic immigrant of a century ago. In the Syrian seeking refuge today, we should see the Jewish refugee of World War II. In these new Americans, we see our own American stories. Our parents, our grandparents, our aunts, our uncles, our cousins, who packed up what they could and scraped together what they had. And their paperwork wasn't always in order. And they set out for a place that was more than just a piece of land, but an idea. America. A place where we can be a part of something bigger. A place where we can contribute our talents and fulfill our ambitions and secure new opportunity for ourselves and for others. A place where we can retain pride in our heritage, but where we recognize that we have a common creed, a loyalty to these documents, a loyalty to our democracy, where we can criticize our government, but understand that we love it. Where we agree to live together even when we don't agree with each other. Where we work through the democratic process and not through violence or sectarianism to resolve disputes. Where we live side by side as neighbors. And where our children know themselves to be a part of this nation. No longer strangers, but the bedrock of this nation, the essence of this nation. And that's why today is not the final step in your journey. More than 60 years ago, at a ceremony like this one, Senator John F. Kennedy said, "No form of government requires more of its citizens than does the American democracy." Our system of self-government depends on ordinary citizens doing the hard, frustrating, but always essential work of citizenship, of being informed, of understanding that the government isn't some distant thing, but is you, of speaking out when something's not right, of helping fellow citizens when they need a hand, of coming together to shape our country's course. And that work gives purpose to every generation. It belongs to me, it belongs to the judge, it belongs to you, it belongs to you, all of us as citizens. To follow our laws, yes, but also to engage with your communities and to speak up for what you believe in and to vote. To not only exercise the rights that are now yours, but to stand up for the rights of others. Birtukan Guduya is here from Ethiopia. She said, "The joy of being an American is the joy of freedom and opportunity. We've been handed a work in progress, one that can evolve for the good of all Americans." Couldn't have said it better. That is what makes America great. Not just the words on these founding documents, as precious and valuable as they are, but the progress that they've inspired. If you ever wonder whether America is big enough to hold multitudes, strong enough to withstand the forces of change, brave enough to live up to our ideals even in times of trial, then look to the generations of ordinary citizens who have proven again and again that we are worthy of that. That's our great inheritance. What ordinary people have done to build this country and make these words live. And it's our generation's task to follow their example in this journey, to keep building an America where no matter who we are or what we look like or who we love or what we believe, we can make of our lives what we will. You will not and should not forget your history and your past. That adds to the richness of American life. But you are now American. You've got obligations as citizens. And I'm absolutely confident you will meet them. You'll set a good example for all of us, because you know how precious this thing is. It's not something to take for granted. It's something to cherish and to fight for. Thank you. May God bless you. May God bless the United States of America.